Hi, everyone. Welcome to Encouragement by Rose Love. Feel free to visit my blog, Encouragement by Rose Love. Welcome, everyone. Now let's get into the video.
Fix it for me. Hi, this is Rose. I want to bring to you a new video. Today I want to talk about sometimes in life we got to know how to let go of certain family, friends, and situations in our life in order to move forward, in order to be productive, in order to be successful. And the first thing I want to talk about is family. Sometimes we can have family in our lives that we love, people we care about, people that we respect because they are family. But I want to say that everybody that is family is not a part of your growth. They're not a part of you going forward and being the person and the thing that God has for you to be. Sometimes family members, friends can be a setback to you and keep you held captive and have you bound to certain things in your life. And the first thing I want to talk about is family. Now we look at Cain and Abel. Because God favored Abel's sacrifice instead of Cain's, out of jealousy, Cain then murdered Abel. Now the firstborn Cain was jealous of Abel's sacrifice to God, and he murdered Abel. Now, when we look at this, I want to go a little bit into this because a lot of times we don't want to believe that family doesn't have our best interest in mind. Sometimes we don't want to believe that family is against us sometimes. Sometimes the ones closest to you can be your worst nightmare and be your worst enemy. Now, Cain murdered Abel because he was jealous of his sacrifice before God, because God favored Abel for his sacrifice. And he took the life of Abel. Now we look at this. I want y'all to look at this now. Abel hadn't did nothing to Cain. Abel hadn't disrespected Cain. Now Abel had his thing that he did because Abel was a shepherd. So he tended his flock. Cain was a farmer, so he tended the field. Now, each one of these men, which were brothers, Cain was the oldest, the firstborn, had their own thing that they was doing in life. But because Cain fell short of his sacrifice before God by sacrificing some before God that wasn't fruitful before God, and his best from his harvest in the field, he got jealous of Abel because of Abel's sacrifice. Abel sacrificed something that was his best. He brought his best before God, to sacrifice his best before God, and he was jealous of his brother. Now notice this. Abel hadn't did anything to Cain. He hadn't mistreated Cain, did anything to Cain. But because of Cain's jealousy, he murdered Abel, took the life of his brother because of jealousy. And that is how a lot of times family can be, and friends can be, and people close to us can be in our life. They can murder our destiny and our growth and block us from going forward to being the best we can be in life because they're jealous. They don't want to see you be productive. They don't want to see the blessings on your life because they're falling short. So you always have to stay woke with the people around you and that's in your circle. Cain and Abel is the very perfect example. Cain murdered his brother for no reason. Then he was jealous because God favored him, because Abel chose to give God his best sacrifice, and he chose to give God his weakest. And I'm bringing this videos to y'all. I think this is the second video I'm bringing to y'all on Stay Woke. about the people in the circle that you keep, because everybody for you ain't rooting for you. Everybody for you don't want to see you go forward and do something good with your life. So stay woke and keep your eyes open. Call if Cain can murder Abel just out of jealousy, because God favored Abel more than him. Imagine what your circle can do to you, even if it's family. So that means no matter who it is, whether it's family, friends, or who that's close to you, be watchful of who you keep around you. Be watchful who you keep in your circle, because everybody's not going to be rooting for you, and everybody's not going to be willing and wanting to support you in your endeavors in life. So in order for you to grow in life and be your best, there are some people, which is family, friends, and situations, you just got to let go and leave behind you, so you can excel and go forward and do the best you can in life and be what God has for you to be. Now we're going to talk about Lot's wife. We're going to talk about Lot's wife now. Now, a lot of times in life, it's not just enough to let people go in your life, family, friends, and all those things. But once you let certain people go, certain things in your life go, you go forward and live your life. Wish them well, wish them blessings, but they are not meant to go the direction you are going. And you have to look forward and go forward to the direction that God has you to go. Now, Lot's wife, for example. Now, Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt for disobeying the angel's warning. By looking back at the evil cities, she betrayed her secret longing for that way of life. She was deemed unworthy to be saved. Now, when we talk about Lot's wife now, the angel had for them to go forward and told them, when I bring you out, don't look back. Don't look back at the city. Look forward. And that was the angel letting them know that you are leaving this behind and you going forward to blessings into your future. But when Lot's wife looked back, she was turned into a pillar of salt, because in her heart, even though the angel told her to go forward and not look back, she looked back because she still was longing for that what was behind her, for that place she used to have, where she had been. And when God moves us forward, away from people and things in our life, to go forward and not look back, that's exactly what it means. Don't look back. Go forward, because looking back at where you used to be and looking back where you used to have been, it makes you feel like sometimes you have a longing for, maybe I should have stayed there. Maybe I should have stayed in that place. Maybe I was better there. When God is trying to move you forward, you cannot go forward when God is trying to take you forward if you keep looking back at what God has bring you from. Keep looking back to where God has brought you from. Now, if I keep looking back at all the evil, conniving places where God has drugged me out of, brought me out of, I can't look forward to my blessings. And I can't look forward to where God is taking me. Now, because Lot's wife was longing for, it says right here, by looking back at the evil city, she betrayed her secret longing for that way of life. And a lot of times when we look back at our past and we long for the things and the places that God has brought us from, it can hold us up and keep us from getting to our destiny of what God has for us to get to, because we keep looking back, and we keep missing and longing for what we used to be. How can you pray and ask God to bring you out of a place that you've been and bring you into a new place in your life when you keep looking back and longing for where you used to be, or want to go back to where you used to be? God can't do nothing with us if he's trying to take us forward and we keep looking back. You can't go forward if you keep looking back from where you come from. There are some people in situations you just got to forget about, not look back at, and keep going forward. Like Lot's wife, when she turned back, she turned into a pillar of salt because she disobeyed the angel's warning. And some things God has brought us out of, he has warned us about. He's already warned us. Everything and the circumstances that related to that thing has shown us that it's not good for our life. It's not what God has for us, but yet we still want to go back. But he's trying to say, go for it. We'll be like Lot's wife. She was deemed unworthy to be saved. I don't want to be deemed as unworthy to be saved because I keep looking back at what I used to have. What I used to have, whether it was family, friends, or places, if it wasn't productive for my life and wasn't a part of my growth, I no longer need that in my life now. It's time to let that go. And also when we look at when God brought Israel out of Egypt, that's another perfect example. When God brought Israel out of Egypt, they wish they would have died in Egypt because they had become comfortable under captivity, being bound and enslaved to the Egypt. They wish they would have been still under the enemy's control and enslaved by the enemy, because they felt like what they had and what they was going through and what they had in Egypt was better than where God was trying to take them to. God was trying to take them to the promised land. Somewhere great where milk and honey, somewhere great, a place and somewhere great for their destiny. But because they got to a point where they started doubting what God was taking them, while they was in the wilderness, they started to doubt where God was taking them. They started to doubt what God was doing. And they felt like, well, we was better off in Egypt. And that's how some of us are right now, as God is taking us out of where we are, where we have been, and taking us to a better place. A lot of us feel like we were better off where we were. Well, I was better off with him. At least I knew him. I was better off with her. At least I knew her. At least I was better off in fornication and adultery and all the other 10 commandments that I was committing sin in, because at least I knew the situation. But when we are bound and we under sin, we are under captivity and bound and enslaved to that sin. And we are under captivity and bound to and enslaved to whatever it was that had us held and had us bound, where we couldn't go forward to the promises of God and go forward to a better destiny in our life. We are enslaved to that thing. And sometime when God has something great for us and want to take us forward, we become afraid and we become scared of what's new in our life, because we have become comfortable at where we were in our past. Because a lot of the places that God has for us to go to the promised land doesn't look familiar to us. And it feels uncomfortable to us because we want to go back to what's familiar to us. Some of us become so comfortable being captive, bound, and enslaved under whatever has us, have a hold over us, or have a hold on us, until we become comfortable in that place. It become familiar to us. So we can't move forward. We can't go to where God has us to go to. We can't go forward to a better place because we're held captive in that place of what feels familiar to us and what has us bound and what has us enslaved. Israel couldn't go forward because they couldn't go forward. They wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Because they was afraid to claim the promised land God had for them. That's another perfect example of being held captive to your past. That your past, the people and places and things of your past has such a hold on your life, to the point where you can't move forward and go to where God has for you to go in your future, to your promised land, to your destiny, to something great that he has for you. That you have to go back to where you used to be. Go back to the place you used to be. Go back to the same people that mistreated you, did you wrong, enslaved you, held you under captivity, had you bound, because that is familiar to you. But you can't go forward, but you rather go back. That was Israel for 40 years, one in the desert. So I brought to you Cain and Abel, Genesis 4, Lot's wife, Genesis 19, Exodus 12 and 51. Don't be held captive to things and people and places in your life that has you held under captivity. Have you held under captivity? Have you bound and have you enslaved to it? To the point where it's so familiar to you, you don't want to move forward. Get to a place in your life where you're willing to not be like Lot's wife. Be willing to let go, not look back, and go forward. Don't be like Israel. Want to go back, but go forward to the promised land of what God has for you in your life. Because as we look at Cain and Abel, sometimes it's the closest people to you, your family, your friends, and the things that's closest to you that can murder your destiny and rob you of something great in your life. Because Cain murdered Abel out of jealousy, not because of something that Abel had done, but out of jealousy of Abel. For no reason. He was perfectly doing what God had commanded him to do and living his life in a wonderful way, but he was murdered because of jealousy. Sometimes the closest things to us, sometimes it's places that we go, it's the things that we allow in our life that hold us under captivity, that murder our destiny and murder things great for our life. And then once God brings us out, we want to go back to things that are familiar to us. Go back to that woman, that man, that situation, that thing that's familiar to you. Whether it's a drug, no matter what it is, that's familiar to you, that keeps you from going forward into your destiny, into the promised land of what God has for you. No, let go. Let go. Let go of some people, some friends, some situations. Let it go. Move forward. Don't be like Lot's wife, want to look back because you longing for what where you used to be. And don't be like the children of Israel. Want to go back because it's familiar to you. No. Let go of those family members, those friends, those situations, those things in your life that's not right for your life. Go forward to your destiny, what God got for you to go to and where you got to go in life, and don't look back. Pray for them. God bless them. You go forward. God bless you, brothers and sisters. God bless you.